Right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Walker Wells. I'm with Global Green. And do we have a tech? No. All right, we're on. Okay, I'm Walker Wells. I'm with Global Green. We're a national nonprofit organization. We're based in Southern California. We have offices in New Orleans and people in Washington, D.C. and in New York City. We're small, we're nimble, we punch above our weight. Our vision is of sustainable cities, or what we call green urbanism. The idea is to take together green, or if you want to go in kind of a way to think about it, Rachel Carson mode, and urban, Jane Jacobs. It's her 100th birthday for all you urban planners out there. If there are any, we bring Rachel and Jane together. We can have cities, and we can have environment, and we can have a more dynamic city. And what this image is showing is how natural infrastructure could be working with human-made infrastructure. This is a modified landscape, asphalt, a storm drainage pipe emerging out of it, plants, photosynthesis, carbon sequestration, urban heat island mitigation. We see this as really our vision for the future of California and how we make our cities. And then the topic that we're going to talk about tonight is really about gray water and the insanity that we have in importing water from far, far away so we can flush it down the toilet and use it only one time. And we want to actually make new water by using it more than once. So here's how we work. Our sort of killer app is our process. So we don't have a thing, we don't have a technology, we have a way of doing things. And that's to work across this spectrum from practice to policy. So we do real projects. We work on green affordable housing projects, like stuff that's here at 10th and Howard, like the one that's going to get built in the Mission at 7th and Folsom, like stuff in Chinatown that we're working on. But we always have an eye towards what's the policy implication. And so what you're seeing here is the normal nonprofit way of doing things is you have these little green jewel boxes, and you think you're going to change the world by doing more and more beautiful little green jewel boxes, but the big orange ball of standard practice will not move because we can't do enough of that. So our strategy is not to do more jewel boxes, but to move the fulcrum, change the fundamental dynamics of the relationship through policy. And by policy change, we're able to make the big orange ball become standard practice. So demonstrate the possible, make the possible commonplace. Now, I do a lot of green building lectures, and you can't do a green building lecture without talking about toilets and urinals. So that's what's going on here. So, all right, so how many people bathed today? How many people went to the bathroom today? Right? So this is a pretty conventional, predictable undertaking that we're involved in. Right? And guess what? If you take the time you're in the shower, 5 minutes, and multiply it by the gallons per minute of a shower, 1.75 gallons per minute, you use about 8.75 gallons of water. And you guys have already looked at that math. So you go to the bathroom 7 times a day. You have a new dual flush toilet. You use the right lever on it, and it averages out at 1.28. And it matches. So guess what? We have this way to theoretically collect that shower water in the morning and use it to flush the toilet all day long. It should be that simple, right? It's super hard. I was talking to Amanda earlier. Her husband's an architect, and she's like, he can't figure it out. My wife's an architect, and she's like, stop talking about that, Walker. Right? Let's talk about our countertops, and I don't want to talk about toilets anymore. The reason this has become relevant, and the green people like me finally have an audience, is the drought. This is a picture of the drought. So you think, oh, wait, Walker, we're supposed to see Lake Mead with no water or some cracked earth desert thing. But this is the reality of the drought. It's a people issue. So these are kids, East Porterville. I'm from the Central Valley. I'm from Selma, California, raising capital of the world. I know what it's like to be in rural, poor Central California. And these folks, being rural and poor, they don't even have potable water because all the water has been drained out of their aquifer and sent to, yes, LA, and used in San Francisco and used for other agricultural uses. So this is a rights issue, right? This is an ethics issue. So it seems unethical, unjust to be using our water only one time when we could be using it more than one time. So why don't we? Here's the challenge. You don't need a roadmap. You don't need a blueprint. You need a sextant to figure this out. You need a really complicated, right? Trying to navigate by the stars, like you look at Orion's belt and you're like the North Star, and I think I'm here, and you go down this pathway. And so here's the deal: is you have policy issues, you have design issues, and you have monitoring issues. If you collect gray water, you have to monitor it every 24 hours. Like a human has to look at it in a microscope every 24 hours. And they have to check for these things: turbidity, which is how clear it is; suspended solids, which is how much stuff is in there; and then biological organisms, including bacteria. So our thought is that we know how to deal with policy and design. We also think there's a technology opportunity in here. You can use electricity to look for suspended solids. You can use light to look for turbidity. And there has to be some way to come up with some biology recognition software so we don't have to have a human looking at bacteria in microscopes every 24 hours. And I think that we can combine our smarts on integrated design with some sort of technological innovation and come up with a way to break through this barrier related to gray water reuse. So this last slide, these are projects that I've worked on over nearly the last 20 years. These are all affordable housing projects. They're all green. They're all LEED certified. You may recognize some of them. Some are here in San Francisco. Some are in Southern California. These are beautiful jewel boxes. They're also all missed opportunities. None of these have a gray water system in them. And I got close. I have a laundry to landscape system in one project in Southern California. But I don't have anything that lets us take our shower water and use it to flush our toilets. And if we could do that, we could see 50% water reduction in these residential units. So I'm hoping you'll join me and join Global Green to realize this opportunity to do this revolution in resource use by addressing gray water as one way to make our cities greener and more sustainable. Thank you. Questions? Right there. The lights are bright.
In addition to technological challenges, are there public policy issues in building codes that prevent people from trying to reuse gray water?
There
Health
are
codes and things like that.
So here's the issue with gray water is it's really, really important that our water is clean because you don't want to get typhoid and cholera and other things that make us sick. So while in, say, solar, you have to just deal with the building code and the electrical code. With water, you have to deal with the building code and the health code, and they've kind of been advancing like this. Right now, the building code people are like, no problem. We can tell you how to design it. Just go get a permit from the health department. And the health department says, well, as soon as the building code people sign off on it, we're fine. And it feels like Soviet Russia, right? It's like, go to this department and get this paper stamp. So the challenge comes back to this 24-hour monitoring. And so I think if we can find a way to break through on this monitoring regime, and if I had more time, I could explain to you the deep fallacies and challenges. But there's not a code barrier, there's a gap. And our job is really to build this bridge. All right, I think I have time for one more question. Yes? Yes?
So you think with the drought that there would be, you would think with the drought that it would be catalytic to trying to figure this out because they've certainly been looking at desalinization plants and other things. What seems to be the biggest roadblock in moving this forward? I mean, we had a great question before about the issues between the two departments, but is there anything the governor's looking at? Is there anything on a broader sweeping scale that is addressing this? Or do you feel like you have competition for other alternative sources of water?
I think it's really, this is it's like a business issue. This is risk. So, who's supposed to take on the risk of doing it first? So we can demonstrate the possible and make the possible commonplace on my, spectrum analogy, but who's going to go first and who's going to take on that risk? And so is it the plumbing engineer? I don't know if that's fair. Is it the developer? Is it the code official in any particular city? So I think somebody needs to provide some risk mitigation to those early adopters, or we need to do a legislative change to deal with this health code issue. All I know is at Global Green, we've been able to grind through these issues on solar, on resiliency, on green building, and I'm confident, if we had the support, that we could just grind through it on this particular issue as well, because we know how to talk to designers, we know how to go to Sacramento and talk to policymakers, and we can connect the gaps, and we know how to build collaborations with the right people on these ends of the spectrum. Okay, I think that's all the time I have. Thank you.